This is HBR News number 379. College creates Nicki Minaj course. Woman jailed after domestic abuse lies. Where we reflect on the stories of the week and give it the Badger treatment. Happy day, everyone, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. I hope you guys are doing well this week and that you are laughing at all of this absurdity so that you are not consumed by it. I am your host, Brian, and I'm joined by, as always, my austere patriarchs and our handmaiden. It's actually just Dr. Anarcam and Hannah. Mike J is not with us right now. He may show up later, so I'm going to leave his cartoon up. It just depends on whether or not he recovers. So, from whatever he's dealing with. And Mike J, just, shout out to him. Do what you got to do. Take your time. Don't worry. Just take care of yourself. So we have a great show lined up for you guys today. So please be sure to continue the conversations both in the chat as well as the comment section. On this week's HBR News Show, we're going to be talking about, we have this update regarding the trial of Kevin Spacey, which you might find surprising. We also have a story of a very important course that is beginning in UC Berkeley involving pop star, I think she's a pop star, Nicki Minaj. And we also have an update regarding a court case that involves a certain gaily decorated cake. So those are just some of the stories we're going to be talking about today. So please consider becoming a Badger so you can see more of our content. So stick around. It's going to be a good time. And be sure to join us afterwards for the patron only show. We're going to be looking at, I have this 2 articles, and I don't know which one of them I want to look at. One of them is from the Mary Sue, and it sounds like, that's easy, just avoid that one. But the other one's from Mel Magazine, which isn't much better. And the one from the Mary Sue is called Our Bad Boyfriends. Hold on a second here. I'm going to display this on the screen. Are bad boyfriends in horror becoming too much of a cliche? And I think it's like they're getting close to having a sense of self-awareness, even though it's only in a specific sort of genre of entertainment and not actual real human beings in real life. And so she's saying, it's getting a little cliche that the men in horror films who are supposed to be the boyfriends turn out to be the assholes. And, it's funny because it's not just a cliche in horror. It's a cliche in all entertainment. And also, what's, really funny about it is that it's a cliche that they created. And now they're like, I don't know, this is getting boring, right?
It's good thing they don't watch any of those television. There's a bunch of them now. The television stations for women. The one I think of first is Lifetime because it's the oldest.
Oh yeah.
But there's the Oxygen one, and then there's another one I can't even think the name of it that always has the movie where the cliche movie where the husband falls for the babysitter, and the babysitter turns out to be a psychopath, and all that kind of stuff. But it's from the wife's perspective, and
Hand That Rocks the Cradle.
All that shit. Those movies, those movies are a dime a dozen. They make so many of them, and that they fuel multiple channels that are geared toward women. And I come in to work after women that have those on all the time. And you can figure the plot of the movie out in 5 minutes. And it's always that. There's always a bad boyfriend. There's always a bad husband, or a weak boyfriend, or a weak husband. There's never a strong man in those in any of those movies. The main character is the gas queen, strong woman that gets that has altruistic motives and is always good to everybody and gets taken advantage of, and then finally all of a sudden she's like, wait a minute, these people are hurting me, I'm going to do something about it, and then becomes like Superwoman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't even need to narrow it down, whether it's movies or TV or Netflix. There's no tension in the plot or character development. Just like, oh, the woman turned out to be good and true and honest, and every man in the story turned out to be a dishonest, evil prick. Oh man, I didn't see that coming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's like they're seeing it in a narrow genre, and I'm like, yeah, but this is actually everywhere, and it's not just in our entertainment. It's in these women's internalized narrative about men. So they just assume this about men in real life, like that they're just gonna be like that. So this was the first thing I thought, well, this could be interesting to discuss and deconstruct. And the other thing was from Mel Magazine. And the Mel Magazine article is basically the manosphere article. It literally just, that's all it is. And this article that I saw is entitled, Instagram's GigaChad Filters Should Put Alpha Male Theory to Rest. Of course, these people, Miles Klee, who's always writing about the manosphere, he hates it like deeply for some reason. And they're basically talking, I guess somebody made a GigaChad filter for phones. And some men are taking pictures, and I think they're hilarious. But and maybe I'll look up the GigaChad filter because I think it's funny. But what I think is interesting about this article is the person who's writing this doesn't think this is funny. They think that men are actually like using the GigaChad filter because they want to look like that, like because they're seriously trying to look this way. And
is this an attempt to find the equivalent of that filter that takes away women's makeup?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, right.
Even though it's kind of the opposite. Men don't do this unless it's a joke, whereas women really do wear makeup and really use that as their picture. Yeah. And then someone found a filter that shows us what they really look like. But men don't do that. They show us what they really look like because they're not quite that narcissistic.
Yes, you might say they are not really thinking about this in that way. I think that the GigaChad filter is just supposed to be funny because it is a funny looking dude. Even though we joke about how like ultra masculine he is, that's part of the humor. It's like exaggerated to the point of absurdity, and that's why guys find it funny. So
if you want a comparison, like women use all kinds of filters on their pictures on Instagram,
of course,
and they use before they even put the pictures up. They're going to use Photoshop, or if they're cheapskates like me, they're going to use GIMP or some other software that they can use to soften their image. I could make myself look 20 years younger if I wanted to. And I could change my hair color. I can take all of the little wrinkles, including like I've had wrinkles around my eyes for years because I got scar tissue there too from a dog attack when I was a kid. But I mean, like I could change all of that. I could give myself blue eyes if I wanted to. And unless you did a forensic check on my picture, you wouldn't be able to tell. I've put giant animals in pictures before, and the only reason you know it's fake is because there's no giant animal in real life. So these women that are, or this guy complaining about these guys, it's funny because it's yet another instance where men cannot even have anything remotely like the standard that women are allowed. And of course, you're not allowed to get upset if you like somebody based on their image, and they don't just do it on Instagram. They do it on dating sites. Like their pictures are filtered on dating sites. So you go to meet her and she looks 20 years older. You're not allowed to get upset If you go to meet her and her picture is slimmed down because as moderately skilled as I am with it, I got a friend that can take 50 pounds off of you and make it look natural. And she could do that for anybody. And you get a meet up with somebody and you find out they look nothing like their image. A woman would be incredibly upset and claim to feel threatened and everything. But a guy, he's not allowed to do that. Socially, he's treated like, how dare you judge this woman by her appearance, whereas the woman might turn around and say, this might be a different guy. How can I trust him? And people will take her seriously. So this idea is just, this article is hilarious on the outset, just in the fact that, this guy thinks that it's okay to criticize this when women are doing it in a multitude of ways and getting away with it. But if you look the images up online, because I'm looking right now at just a Google search for images from the GigaChad filter, and nobody would look at these and be like, oh, that guy actually looks like that. It's hilarious.
Yeah, or that guy actually wants to look like that. So like, I think the main issue with the GigaChad, it's not even like, it's not just the filter. It's the what do you call it? The trend, the phenomena, the meme itself. I think that's what Miles Klee hates. He doesn't like, because essentially what it is it's a presentation, even though it's presented a little with like tongue firmly in cheek, and most men think of it as a funny meme, but it's also a representation of like a hyper masculine guy, right? So when you look up like what if you look up GigaChat memes, they're essentially describing, ultra masculine men that don't put up with shit, that do whatever they want, that take whatever position they want on any given thing, that don't worry about offending, women or whatever, because this is what they believe, or sometimes, they're just straight up like they take a very unpopular position because they for whatever reason they believe it's just right, and it's sort of like that's sort of like an ultra masculine thing to do in the eyes of the people who are making these memes. And it doesn't really have anything to do with the look, but I think Miles Klee, the guy who wrote this article, he despises the notion that there is a hyper masculine meme that a lot of men relate to, and that's what he wants to stop. And people like him, like feminists and male feminists alike, and that's their problem, really. I don't think it has much to do with like whether or not they really want to look this way. I think that it's only going to make these guys, people who use the filter, it's just going to make them funnier, because we're going to see more of it, I think. So
it's weird that filters that make women look hyper feminine require feminism to fix it, and filters that make men look hyper masculine require feminism to fix it.
Yeah,
all roads lead to feminism. And yeah, in before, feminism is not the cure to any of this. It's the cause of all of this.
Yeah. So anyway, have a chuckle. So those are the two stories we're looking at covering. It's gonna be one of these: our bad boy friends in horror becoming too much of a cliche, or Instagram's GigaChad filter should put alpha male theory to rest. Because again, that's what he's really after. It's these ideas about alpha males. He's trying to eliminate them so that there are no differences between any one type of man or another. All right. So anyway, if you guys would like to check out the after show or the patron show, you have to become a badger yourself by going to feedthebadger.com. $5 a month will get you into the Discord, and you'll be able to watch all of the additional content, like these patron shows and all of the other ones that we've done before. And we would really appreciate it. And if you don't want to wake up one morning to find that we've been yeeted from the internet, then please go to badgerfeed.com or honeybadgerradio.com. And yeah, like, so maybe that's where all of our content will live. But then I was going to mention the last thing is we are still doing our monthly fundraiser, and we could certainly use your support because we're coming up on the end of the month here, and I don't know if we're gonna like meet our goal. So if you want to help us out in any way, it doesn't matter how small, um, please go to feedthebadger.com/support, and you'll be able to essentially give at on the website. So you don't have to do it through super chats because Google takes a nice chunk out of those. Unless there's something you really wanted to say, then go ahead and do it that way, or through super chows, which is also super handy. So, all right. Now with all that said, let's get into today's stories. Let's start by talking about Kevin Spacey, who is back in the news, which is kind of weird. A civil jury has concluded that Kevin Spacey did not molest actor Anthony Rapp decades ago. Spacey has maintained his innocence throughout the trial and claimed that back in 2017, it was his publicist who made him apologize to Rapp when he came out with these bombshell allegations. Quote, "I was being encouraged to apologize, and I've learned a lesson, which is never apologize for something that you didn't do. I regret my entire statement," end quote, Spacey said in court in New York City as he began to cry. Quote, "It's my responsibility. I put it out there. I was really wrong. It was really bad, and I'm deeply sorry. I have to own that," end quote.
Is he apologizing for his apology?
Yeah, I think so.
By your own admission, that doesn't work, man, dude. Anyway.
Well, I think he's apologizing for essentially, yeah, he's apologizing for his apology because the apology, the original one, made him look guilty. So
I think he's basically saying it misled people because a lot of people thought he must be guilty because of the way that he apologized.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the same thing's going to happen after this apology. That's the nature of an apology. It's just depending on on the nature of the audience that's going to hear you when you apologize. Apologizing again just makes you seem even more guilty, but no less guilty for your original apology. They're still going to hold you, dare I say, accountable for what that apology was about. Anyway, sorry, finish the article.
All right, no, it's okay. All right. Wait, no, I already read that part. Rapp accused Spacey of inappropriate sexual advances in 1986 when Rapp was only 14 in a BuzzFeed article. There's your problem right there. At the time, Spacey responded by denying having a memory of that event and coming out as gay. Spacey originally and now regrets responding to the allegations at all, commenting, quote, "I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago. But if I did behave then as he describes," so it's if I did behave then as he describes, "I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I am sorry for the feelings he described having carried with him all these years. This story has encouraged me to address other things about my life," Spacey's statement continued. "I know that there are stories out there about me and that some have been fueled by the fact that I have been so protective of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I've had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly, and that starts with examining my own behavior."
It's all rather conflicting. isn't it? On the one hand, men get falsely accused of sexual misconduct all the time. On the other hand, Hollywood scumbags get away with sexual misconduct all the time. So it's easy to think of Kevin Spacey as a lying, manipulative scumbag because he so often plays those kinds of shady characters. He seems to be rather good at them. Maybe that's him leaning into what he really is. Maybe that's him being typecast. But yeah, you don't have to go to Kevin Spacey to find someone you can typecast as a shady scumbag within Hollywood. That applies to more Hollywood big shots than it doesn't. And maybe that's just him being a pretty good actor. Villains are more interesting to play, as any actor will tell you. And remember, this allegation first saw the light of day during the rise of the Me Too debacle, which doesn't exactly lend it any credence. It lends it negative credence, if anything. I'd venture to say that for every singular claim of legitimate grievance, there were multiple claims of sheer opportunism, mostly from women who knew exactly what they were doing, trying to get a piece of the Hollywood pie. The casting couch is an opportunity to get a piece of the pie, and Me Too was a subsequent opportunity to get another piece of the pie. In the event that the casting couch didn't bring you quite as much sunshine as you hoped it would. And it was worth pointing out that the casting couch has never represented an additional optional opportunity for male actors, at least for the most part. They just have to be, good at acting, or just right for the part or whatever. You need skill or luck, or both, as a male actor. But wanking off Harvey Weinstein's shriveled raisin dick was never an option for male actors. But that's not to say that male actors, especially young, unestablished ones, weren't subject to sexual exploitation. I'm sure they were, and still are, just not in the context of the casting couch.
There's a rather large contingent of male actors that were child actors that have made the accusation that there is a pedo ring in Hollywood. Yeah. So that's out there.
Yeah, they still have to land their roles and get their jobs legitimately, and then they still have to run the gauntlet of any executive producers or whatever who prefer their bread buttered that side or on every side, as I'm sure many of you know. And it can't be easy as a man to try and elbow your way through all these opportunistic female whores of Me Too, trying to extract another pound of flesh, and as a male actor actually trying to get some justice for an exploitation that genuinely happened to you. So yeah, I don't know what to think in this here Kevin Spacey case, because the Hollywood meat grinding machine doesn't know what to think either. If it's men exploiting men, who gives a shit, right? If it's men exploiting boys, who gives a shit? Never mind the absolutely non-existent phenomenon of women exploiting men and boys. Heaven forfend. We have far more important things to talk about, like the Whammons not getting what they want out of their particular Faustian bargain. And it's almost like the imaginary exploitation of women is being used to cover up the all too real exploitation of men and children, of course, both of which are irrelevant in a world ideologically possessed with thinking of the Whammons. All we know is Hollywood needs to clean house. And I mean ideologically. Clean up all the feminism, or you'll never even start cleaning up the general sexual degeneracy. Yes, the former leads to the latter. The fact that you don't realize that is the problem, in the humble opinion of this color commentator.
Well, and the tough thing about this is, I mean, obviously, if the allegation didn't stand up in court, it's because there was not enough evidence to back it. And it's sort of suspect that it wasn't made, you know, just like a lot of women's allegations. It wasn't made until years later, and it wasn't made to law enforcement. It was made to a news outlet and so on. And I think it's a different story when it's something that would have been, you know, undeniably unacceptable at the time. Like, if he had gone to somebody and said, "Hey, you know, he made advances at me, and I'm male and 14," back in the 80s, like the cops would have been all over that. That would have never would have been shut down. It was not even There was not even a question about it in the 80s that somebody would, if somebody would have accused an adult man of attempting anything with an underage boy, that, you know, there would have been an investigation.
Yeah.
So it's not something like, a lot of women make the allegation that the police don't properly investigate sex crimes against women, which is bullshit. They do. It's just that women don't like the investigation process because it does involve confirming the allegation. And if the allegation isn't true, you can't confirm it. And when they start looking into ways to confirm the details you gave, and it turns out the details you gave were false, that's very uncomfortable, you know, for a woman, right? Because women are used to lying about all kinds of things, and not having anybody question it. And then when they lie about something serious like that, and it gets questioned, then they start worrying that they're going to be embarrassed, and they start worrying that they're going to be prosecuted and stuff like that. And you know, it's uncomfortable even when the details can be confirmed. It feels like an examination, and it makes you look again at what happened. And it's of course it's uncomfortable to relive, you know, and walk yourself back through the crime over and over again, trying to look for ways to help the police catch the person that did it to you, and actually stop them, you know, and arrest them and so on. Like, because you then have to sit there and think about what happened to you over and over again. But it's not traumatic in the way that feminists make it out to be, right? And so even women don't really have an excuse for not reporting at the time of the crime. But this is just, it's suspect because it wasn't reported at the time of the crime. It's suspect because there was not enough evidence given. It's suspect for all kinds of reasons. And it's sad that Spacey made himself suspect because of his apology. But I think he's telling the truth in that his publicist made him do it, because this is a pretty common thing for people in Hollywood, or any other area where they're going to have a publicist, where the publicists don't seem to have figured out yet that if you didn't do anything wrong, you don't apologize. And if you did do something wrong, you still shouldn't necessarily apologize, because it's not going to solve the problem. You either fix the problem or you take the L. But you know, the whole situation is, his career's never going to be the same. Anthony Rapp's career's never going to be the same. No good will come out of having made this allegation so many years later. And both of them are always going to live under a cloud of suspicion for the rest of their lives because of this. And it was really dumb. And you know, if Rapp couldn't prove his case, and whether it was true or not, which I tend to suspect that it was not, but if he couldn't prove his case, coming out all those years later was a really dumb idea.
Yeah.
With an allegation, and especially, like, really, BuzzFeed.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
It was
BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed. Yeah.
You're gonna make a sexual assault allegation in a cat blog. Okay.
Mm-hmm. That doesn't look good. And apparently, and I think so, the way that I see this is, it seems to me that the legal system worked as intended, hopefully, and it was just it was just found that there wasn't enough evidence to convict, and that might be because of the amount of time that's passed, and that might be for other reasons that it looks like he got away with it. But then there's also the possibility that Rap is cooked up a story, wanted to use it against Spacey. This was during the Me Too thing, and I know that normally people in the Me Too movement don't count men, but I think at around this time there was one man who had spoken out, and it was Terry Crews. And I think because Terry Crews was like this big bodybuilding like black guy, the feminists all celebrated him, and there was this big PR thing going on where they were talking about him in terms of like toxic masculinity and his courage and everything. But then they dropped him after a while because they wanted the Me Too movement to just be about women, and that's really the only reason. Like, you don't hear anything about Terry Crews' experiences anymore. Like, nobody thinks of him as a victim. He's just like doing his thing, and benefiting, I guess, because he had some good PR for a bit as a result of his coming forward. So I don't know. I don't know what the truth is. I don't know if we'll ever learn that. But what I'm saying is that I think I have to accept the possibility or likelihood that Kevin Spacey is innocent because there just wasn't enough info. But I also want to point out something else. He wasn't only accused by one person. Rap is not the only person who came forward. In fact, right after Rap came forward, a bunch of other people did. One anonymous accuser said that he had a sexual relationship when he was 14 with Mr. Spacey. Another anonymous man accused Spacey of grooming him when he was 17. So there's a number of people who don't even want to give us their names that are claiming that they were also victims. I don't know if there's a lawsuit involved in this. I don't know if it's how far this goes. But to me, this feels like there was blood in the water, and all of the sharks came out. This is like what often happens with the Me Too movement. Kate Edwards alleged Spacey pressured her to have sex with him when she was 17. She's like Kate Edwards. I think she's like I have no idea. Justin Dawes claimed Spacey gave him alcohol and played gay pornography. When he was 16, like on a screen. An anonymous accuser alleged Spacey sexually assaulted him in West Hollywood. An anonymous filmmaker said Spacey sexually harassed him on a movie set. Mark Ebennock claimed Spacey's assistant asked him to engage in a sexual act with Spacey. Not exactly breaking any law there. I say no. An anonymous journalist said Spacey groped his genitals in a British club, and it goes on. There's like several others, and there's no. So we don't. I don't know if any of these are going to be followed up on, but there's a lot of allegations. So is it? And here that brings about this. What I think is a kind of important question. Does the number of accusers matter? Like, how many people are really following up? And does it say anything about Kevin Spacey? Like, setting aside the fact that he's obviously, and this is the thing that I think everyone should take away from this, is essentially traveling in circles where shit like this happens. Because I know it happens. Like, I'm not denying that. But like, if you're around people who are sexually degenerate and sexually predatory, and they think of like, oh, let's just have an orgy this weekend because fuck it, I don't have anything to do and I got the rest of the afternoon off, whatever. I think that it's lifestyles like that invite these problems. And when I say these problems, I'm talking about sexual assaults. I'm talking about sexual advances, maybe from undesirable people. But I'm also talking about false allegations. I'm also talking about people who emotionally abuse others by saying, I'm going to go to the press and tell them that you grabbed my junk or something. And
Yeah.
only in environments like that can this be exploited. So
I have a tendency to think that when you have one allegation and then there's a bunch of copycat allegations, that's not somebody that actually did something. That's somebody that people think they can build a lawsuit against. And I don't know if I mean I'm assuming Spacey probably he hasn't made the news for being one of the Hollywood guys that was careless with his money and ran out. So it's very possible that he's got some kind of a nest egg that everybody's after.
Possibly.
Very many things that could come out of that. Of course, there's always if people just don't like him. I've worked in places where an individual in the workplace or in particular a manager in the workplace that is disliked, one person will make a complaint and then a bunch of other people will come out with complaints. And if you've worked with them and you know what's going on, you know that the majority of the complaints are bogus, but the employer still gets rid of the manager because they don't want that individual that's getting all those complaints to lead to a lawsuit against the company. So it's very effective in a work environment to turn around and pile on allegations once one has been made. Maybe he's an asshole. Maybe people don't like him. Nobody knows. There really is no way to know. The one thing that we can say is that the court didn't confirm this allegation.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like I said, I'm just gonna have to go along with whatever the results of the trial were, and just say, hopefully this is justice done. But I guess we'll see. There could be changes, appeals filed, maybe more people will come forward. Who knows? Let us know what you guys think about this story in the comments section. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the next story. And it is, we're going to be talking about baking the cake. All right. So in 2017, Christian baker Kathy Miller refused to bake a custom cake for a lesbian wedding, citing her religious beliefs, and referred the couple to another baker. Miller was then subject to multiple lawsuits. California's Department of Fair Housing and Employment subsequently filed legal action against Miller's business under the Unruh Civil Rights Act, an expansive 1959 state law aimed at protecting consumers from discrimination by businesses on the basis of race, ethnicity, or religion. Quote, recently, a California court ruled in favor of Miller in the 9 years long battle. Quote, we applaud the court for this decision, end quote. Thomas More Society Special Counsel Charles Lemandry said in a statement as cited by Fox News. Quote, the freedom to practice one's religion is enshrined in the First Amendment, and the United States Supreme Court has long upheld the freedom of artistic expression, end quote. Paul Iona, Thomas More Society's special counsel, who also served as one of Miller's lawyers, noted in a statement that there was a certain irony in this client's case given, quote, that a law intended to protect individuals from religious discrimination was used to discriminate against Kathy for her religious beliefs.
So this...
The one thing that I will point out that the news media missed in this case, and the court might have even missed it as well, is that this wasn't just a case of freedom of religion. This was a case of free speech, because compelled speech goes against your right to freedom of speech. If you are forced to say something, that you don't believe is okay for you to say, that is as bad as being prevented from stating your dissent in a particular political venue. So that's something that I just wanted to point out really quick.
Mm-hmm.
So you said this is a 9 years long legal battle. Is that right? Is it because it says in 2017, which would make it 5 years? But was it 4 years before that? Is what's happened?
I guess the whole thing started before that, but
right.
I don't know.
So this has taken 9 years. This court case from incident to verdict. It's taking 9 years of presumably a great deal of stress and uncertainty, and presumably legal expenses for this Christian bakery to be able to uphold their principles, and all of this because a lesbian couple was inconvenienced. You had to leave the bakery in question and walk 50 yards down the road to a bakery that would happily bake the cake bigger. And don't tell me you'd have trouble finding such a bakery. It's California.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine there's an endless supply of bakeries who would not only bake you a lesbian cake, but would even offer you a discount for being lesbians without any apprehension about perhaps being sued for discriminating against heterosexual couples. Nor should they, by the way, even if it's your religion to discriminate in favor of gay people. And let's face it, it pretty much is a religion in all too many cases. Nevertheless, that should be allowed. If you want to specialize in any kind of wedding cakes or retirement cakes, or children's birthday cakes. Hell, even trans children's birthday cakes. I mean, quote unquote, trans children, whatever. If that's the niche that you're looking to fill, go ahead and fill your boots, mate. Refuse to bake a birthday cake for any child who still identifies as the gender they were, quote unquote, assigned at birth. We'll see how the market responds.
Mm-hmm.
And it wouldn't surprise me if when the parents of a cisgendered child ask you for a birthday cake for their cisgendered child, you could proceed to refuse to bake that cake and then go on to demand that their child goes on puberty blockers and has their genitals surgically reformed into the shape of a unicorn. You might be able to sue those customers in the event that they refuse to do so. Yeah, if they refuse to give you their custom, perhaps on religious grounds. If not now, then maybe in 5 years, given the trajectory of Californian politics. I realize the case we're talking about in this story seems like a white pill that might rebut what I just said. But yeah, sorry, in every white pill, there is a reactionary seed of a black pill. I can see it, and I can't unsee what I see. I'm vigilant like that. Be prepared for the worst, because you're surrounded by people who want the worst, and will only see the best as an excuse to push harder for the worst. I hope I'm wrong. I really do, and I promise I won't act all smug when I turn out to be right again. I'll carry on being vigilantly black-pilled until anyone starts fucking listening to me.
Is this the same story as the... Because, like, this is the thing that confused me. I just want to know. Is this story the same story as the one that that involved a male baker?
Yes.
This is the same story.
I think this is the same story.
All right.
So what's going on with this? Well, no, actually, this is another one. I think.
That's the thing. Like it. Okay.
It involves an organization. What people don't understand is there is an organization in California targeting bakers.
Oh yeah, sure.
That will not. So
it's like
there
a
was
government thing.
there was a case before this that they lost in California, and then they went on to win in the Supreme Court. This is the Gresham Bakers, and then there was the Asher's Bakery, was a gay man. And they keep the media keeps reporting this incorrectly. They didn't refuse to make the cake. They refused to write.
Decorate it.
Well, they didn't refuse to decorate it. They refused to write a specific statement on the cake, and as part of the decoration, like they were willing to make the cake. They were willing to put flowers and whatever other decorations on it. They were not willing to tailor the decorations to make a statement specifically toward gay marriage, and that is the reason that they got sued, and that they were getting sued over refusal to write congratulations. Like, I don't remember what the names were, but congratulations Adam and Steve, to use the cliche. I don't know if people have argued with very many people about gay marriage, where they come at you with God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. But they refused to write congratulations Adam and Steve or something along those lines. And so the client, the customer, sued, and then this was a different. So you have this was Oregon. The Christian bakers in Oregon. So you've got, and there was the California baker was targeted again as well. This isn't people who went to a baker and then found out they were going to get denied. This is people who looked for bakers specifically that were religious and targeted them, and then filed lawsuits. If you go, especially in California, if you go around and look for a baker that will theme your cake for a gay wedding, you will find people who will make beautiful, elaborate, and very, very well themed cakes for you. But if you want somebody to sue, you can find that too. And the same thing is probably true. There's a bunch of different stories back in the 2010s and the 20-teens. Colorado judge orders Christian baker to bake gay wedding cake. So like this isn't.
That's why I was asking, because when I saw the article and I sent it to Lindsay, and she goes, "Didn't we cover this already? Like, isn't this over?" And I'm like, "No, this is a different bakery, and it's a different case.
Yeah.
It's a different part of the country. It's completely different, but it's the same." And I'm like, I think these people are being targeted. I don't think this is just like, it just so happens to be that this lesbian couple, they walked in and they were like, "Oh, we heard so much about, the cakes you make. Can you make us one? And make sure you put the words, like, I don't know, make sure you put like a reference to us being lesbian on the cake. Yeah. And how, gay marriage is great. Because we eat out each other's, axe wounds or whatever." And I just said, this for me is the main reason why I find this suspicious, because it's definitely political and it's targeted. They're going after religious business owners. It's probably not just about cakes, although that might be an easy way to do it. And they're essentially trying to use legislative power on these small business owners, and this is not the same incident, and that should make you guys really suspicious about what's really going on, and I think it's political.
Yeah, I mean, there was even one a guy was asked to make a birthday cake for Satan, and the request was real specific. And it says here, I would like to get a quote on a birthday cake for a special event. Um, and then it goes on. It is a cake that is religious in theme, and since religion is a protected class, I'm hoping that we'll gladly bake the cake. That's a misunderstanding of the amendment. As you see, birthday cake in question is to celebrate the birthday of Lucifer, or as they are also known, Satan, who was born as Satan when he was cast from heaven by God, and then he asked to put on an upside down cross under the head of Lucifer.
Yeah.
And well, the way that religion is protected is very specific under the First Amendment. It doesn't just say that you have the right to practice your own religion. It also says the state cannot impose a religion on you. And it simply means you cannot be compelled to be part of a religion. It's how atheists are able to exist in the United States. They aren't existing by practicing religion, because atheists claim that atheism is not a religion, that it's a non-belief, not a belief in the non-existence of deity, and that there's no religious practice associated with it. They're not evangelical. They don't try to persuade other people to become atheists. They don't insist that atheism has to be the way things are done, and so on. So, they can exist because they have the right to not have a religion imposed on them, since you can't practice non-religion as a protected class under freedom of religion. But this person wants to impose a religious practice on another person using the claim of freedom of religion. And that's probably going to fail on the basis that the baker has his right to practice his religion as well, and he can't be forced to do something that's against his religion just because somebody else wants it as part of theirs. They can decorate their own cake, and nobody could nobody could arrest them for decorating their own cake that way, but they don't have the right to force the baker to do it for them. And that's going to be a contentious issue for a while, I think, in court, until it is settled law that you cannot force someone to violate their own religion to support your beliefs, that you can't use your status as part of a protected class to impose compelled speech and compelled action in violation of somebody else's beliefs. And that's going to be tough. The Supreme Court's probably going to have quite a bit of argument from different angles trying to make that happen, because authoritarians within groups like the LGBTQ population, where the community is very authoritarian and very exclusive and very contentious, and is not live and let live, is going to try to do this. And the same is true of anti-theists, which are a little different from atheists. I would call anti-theism a religion. And it's also true of Satanists to the degree that it is with the LGBTQ population. There are people who practice Satanism that don't want anybody else in their business, and they don't want anybody else's business. They just want to live their lives and do their thing, and they have a legal right to do that in the U.S. And then there are people that are using it as a means to get in other people's faces, and those are going to be the people that do shit like this.
Yeah.
So when's Satan's birthday? Is April the 15th? Because I'd go along with that.
Wait.
That's perfect.
That's Satan's birthday is April the 15th. I never.
Tax day.
Oh,
Tax day.
Tax day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tax day. Tax day. Yep.
That makes a lot of sense.
That would be perfect on the day of theft, and the day of government theft.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we're gonna move on to the next story. Let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments section. And I think I saw, there's a super chat here. I'm gonna read it out. Hold on a second here. This is from Q Brother Soulstar, who gives us $2 and says, "I wonder would this happen to the Muslim bakery?" Oh, if there was a Muslim bakery, well, they wouldn't go to those that business for a couple reasons. Number one, their real problem is with Christianity. It's not with Islam or religion in general. or Judaism. It's with Christianity. Why?
It depends on the atheist, because I run into some atheists that are very, very anti-Islam.
Yeah, but I'm not.
So they might ask them to do something in violation of their religion just for that. But again, that would be anti-theists.
I'm not really talking about just atheists, though. I'm talking about ideological SJW types that I think that these lesbians that went into this shop, I think that's what they were. So they're
after Christians.
Yeah, they're just after Christians, is what I'm saying. Like, and they know they can, and this is the reason. Part of it is the fact that if they did this, if they went to an Islamic bakery and made the same demands, the Islamic bakery would tell them to go fuck off. And they wouldn't put up with them, and they wouldn't allow themselves to be bullied by these people. And so that wouldn't work. Like, it literally wouldn't, because Muslims don't put up with that, especially from, people who don't even share their beliefs or values. And
what actually makes Christians the target for this, the chosen target for this, is that Islam is protected as a minority religion in the United States. So if you say things in particular about them, and you don't clarify that you're talking about ISIS and not, the guy down the street that just goes to the mosque and prays and goes home and that kind of thing, then you open yourself up to being accused of prejudice yourself. Yeah, and even if you do say something about ISIS, you still open yourself up in some ways. But Christianity is not a protected class. And, even though religion is a protected class, Christianity is not protected. So you end up in a situation where, if you're going to target somebody, that's the easiest target. People don't consider Christians a minority. People don't consider Christians to be vulnerable. This is a country where you can't tell somebody they can't be Christian. And so if you're going to undercut people's right to practice their religion, the biggest target and the most vulnerable target is Christianity.
Yeah. And again, it's also it's the biggest, it's the most popular, it's the easiest to deconstruct, and it's probably the one religion that is most closely tied to the United States, which is ultimately what they're attacking. And that is why I'm saying there's a really big difference between someone who is a consistent atheist, maybe even a consistent anti-theist, that criticizes Islam and Christianity and Judaism, which the third I almost never hear about, but okay. And and there's a big difference between that and someone who is like being specific, and they're targeting Christianity and they're ignoring Islam. They're not going to go after those people. They're not going to harass them, or anything like that. Part of it is cowardice because they don't want to face those people. But I think that another part of it is that it's not really useful to them. Attacking Christianity is. So, all right, or at least that's what they believe. But look, we got to move on. Thank you for the super chat, Q Brother Soulstar. Let me just check the super chows. I don't know if any of them came through yet. But yeah, I think we do have some, or one. Meredith G gives us $5 and says, HBR News number 379, that's today. The actor John Barrowman gave testimony in the Spacey case that contradicted Rapp's story. To make matters more interesting, Rapp is close friends with the journalist who first published the allegation. Not surprising. Thank you, Meredith. Okay. And then Q Brother Soulstar gives us $2 and says, ironically, all three are Middle Eastern born religions. Yeah, but look, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole because our show is we got to be done in the next half hour. So
it's kind of like comparing vegetables and fruits that come off the same farm and saying, well, they all came off the same farm. They've got something in common. Well, yeah, but they're completely different.
The Middle East was what we call the cradle of civilization. So it was obviously the cradle of a lot of religions, but not even most of them. Eastern religions aren't even related to Abrahamic religions. But yes, we must move on.
Yeah.
Yes, we got to move on. So thank you for the super chat. We know that these all came from the Middle East. But maybe you should ask yourself, just ask, okay? How do you get into Islam? How do you get into Judaism? And how do you get to be a Christian? And think about the rules around those. So, all right. Anyway, we're gonna move on to the next story. Let me know what you guys think about this one in the comments. Now I gotta go to the source. Here we go. A UK woman pictured here from North Lincolnshire, made up claims that her ex-partner had cut her and put a gun to her head. Christy Barr, 24, was jailed for 3 years and 9 months after admitting to perverting the course of justice. Her false allegations led to a restraining order on her ex, Brian Carrison, and landed him in prison for 2 months. Because that's what they do in the UK with the cops. In December of 2018, Barr called the police saying that Carrison had assaulted her, cutting her with a knife, throwing her down the stairs, and then put a gun to her head. Due to the violent allegations, fully armed police came and arrested Carrison. However, police said that evidence and witness statements proved that he could not have committed the offenses, prompting investigations into Barr herself. From the BBC. What's I don't know. That sounds like a
Chief Superintendent.
Okay, Chief Superintendent Christine Wilson from Humberside Police said Mr. Carrison had been accused and depicted as a monster by a woman who had her own devious and malicious agenda to try and ruin his life. She added, quote, Ryan has had to watch everything he had vanish in the blink of an eye, being incarcerated for crimes he did not commit and unable to be with his daughter, all because his ex-partner decided she would manipulate the system to see Ryan suffer. Chief Superintendent Wilson and Barr had, quote, portrayed Ryan to the whole country through national and social media as a violent man that she was terrified of, end quote. She added, quote, in reality, Ryan is the one who was suffering a tirade of abuse from the vicious and false allegations, end quote.
We seem to have a disproportionate amount of these from the UK, don't we? I don't know what that means, but I'd say that to Nancy Pelosi while she's saying, well, inflation is worse in Europe than the UK. Yeah, lots of things are worse over here. That doesn't mean you can't lead the way in making them less bad where you are. And I'm trying to avoid coming to any conclusion that might be called sexist. Were I to ask the question, is lying a gendered phenomenon? I feel like I feel compelled to give the answer no, of course not. It's no more gendered than the phenomenon of violence. It's not even an adult phenomenon, lying. Children lie instinctively, boys and girls alike. It's not even a human phenomenon. Other animals are capable of deception in one form or another. Even some plants, to some degree, are capable of distorting reality in some way. Life forms of all kinds can and will evolve into any niche that nature lets them get away with over the generations. But therein we reach a question that perhaps needs to be asked. Has evolution provided men and women with an unequal propensity for dishonesty? If toxic masculinity is a thing, then surely toxic femininity is also a thing. And let us propose that they are different kinds of toxicity. You might say that men are more violent. Personally, I would qualify it as perhaps men are more combative. They're more prone to physical fights, but those fights have rules. No pulling hair, no scratching eyes out, no chemical warfare, etc. Women are violent too, but they're not quite so restricted by any instincts towards fair play. And it's of less importance because women are less prone to physical fights. They'd much rather get the men to do it on their behalf. You might therefore say that masculinity becomes toxic when it is excessively combative. But is it not so that femininity becomes toxic when it is excessively duplicitous, excessively dishonest? I'm not just talking about, aesthetic enhancement, like artificially making yourself look more attractive and neotenous than you really are. I mean artificially making others look more nefarious or seem to be more nefarious than they really are. That would follow, wouldn't it?
We have to look at how women fight, and this is if you grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in, and then you moved into the rest of the world out of that neighborhood, you'd have an easy way of noticing it even as a girl. I grew up around mostly boys with a few girls my age in the neighborhood, and we acted more like boys when we fought because of that. Like I once was in my backyard and one of the gals had believed I did something that I didn't do and did not even ask. She just walked up to me and clocked me right in the jaw. That's how the fight started, right? And that was something that was normal in our neighborhood. Like you settle things that way, and of course we all grew out of that. And I've run into people that didn't, but we all grew out of that over time. We learned to talk about things first and resort, to violence only in extreme situations where there's no other choice. But girls from across town, when I first started running into them, had a totally different way of fighting that was completely alien to me, and I didn't understand it and was very vulnerable to it because of that. And that was rumor spreading and other forms of relational aggression. They would shield themselves behind storytelling and playing victim of things, showing vulnerability as a weapon, and feigning innocence and feigning hurt over things that either didn't happen or didn't happen the way they described them. And the next thing you knew, you were the bad guy in a situation that never happened or didn't happen the way that people thought it did. And it was really difficult to learn to navigate that. And men are blindsided by it, just completely flat up, straight up blindsided by it because they don't do that shit. And it does involve a lot of lying and deception and subterfuge, chicanery. And it starts with, the appearance of neoteny and the pretense at being more vulnerable than you really are, more pained than you really are, and more innocent than you really are. And if you want to defend yourselves against stuff like that, I really recommend looking up Alison Tieman's personal channel, Typhon Blue, on YouTube, and watching her threat narrative series, because it wasn't really until I was an adult and I started analyzing, things that happened to me when I was growing up, that I started understanding some of that stuff. And it still didn't click for me until I was in my 40s and I started learning from Allison. And I'm like, I'm going back and looking at things that happened to me over the course of my life going, that was a threat narrative. That was a threat narrative. That was a threat narrative. And, it got used on me over and over again. And, it's if it can be done to a female who just in the early part of her development, her social development, was denied access, I guess you could say, to female relational aggression on a normal scale. A guy who it's completely alien to has no chance of preemptively striking against that or preemptively defending himself against it unless he knows, unless he watches and learns. So yeah, it's women do have a predisposition, whether it's ingrained socially or whether it's a naturally occurring thing that basically comes out of our lack of risk taking. Like, I think my female friends and I from our neighborhood that I grew up in were socialized out of it, not that we weren't socialized into it. Because I've done other things that are not girly, like pick up bugs with my bare hands. I'm the resident spider killer at work because none of the other girls will do it. I don't have problems cleaning up other people's puke. Things that you would look at as a girl and be like, ew, I hate it. No. I it's hard to gross me out with something other than mold, which I'm highly allergic to, and that's a different story. So it's definitely fair to say that because women don't use physical aggression naturally in the same way that men do. Women don't do it bravely. Women don't do it when they could get hit back, and they substitute social aggression in order to protect themselves from physical aggression, or they'll use other people's physical aggression by using social aggression to manipulate them. Women do have a higher propensity to lie, and this is why you see more false allegations coming out. Although in the UK, you also have the situation where a few years ago, it came out that police were by order of the law not properly vetting allegations, and they were bringing a lot of cases against men that were falling apart in court because there was evidence against the allegation that they were ignoring. And there was a big hullabaloo about that. It was a few years after a big hullabaloo about them not bringing cases frequently enough. So politics has something to do with this as well, because like women actually pushed for more cases to be brought, and then once it started, there were probably more liars coming out of the woodwork because they had that power. And as soon as you give power to people without accountability, the unscrupulous and the malicious come out and exploit it. So you'll see this for a while in the UK until women figure out that they can't get away with it. And then they'll go back to excluding the law from their relational aggression, and you'll see more instances where somebody gets publicly accused and they get beaten to death, and that's where it ends in terms of the woman, and then it becomes a legal issue for the people that attacked them.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah. As I was saying, there's no fair play when it comes to that kind of that female kind of dishonesty. Certainly not one that's equivalent to the kind of competition in which men engage. Men take violence and turn it into regulated combat, but women do not take dishonesty and turn it into a regulated dishonesty. Regulated dishonesty is kind of the contradiction in terms. It only gets more and more dishonest, more and more convoluted in its layers of deception. And it's tempting to say, as I often do, that the only reason women get away with their lies where men wouldn't get away with theirs is because of our legal system and the way it lets them get away with it. Indeed, our society at large lets them get away with it. And yes, that is a compounding factor, certainly. By all accounts, we appear to be a gynocentric species, as most animals are. But there you go. We do this instinctively as a society because we do it instinctively as a species. So yeah, I'll go ahead and echo what Hannah just said. Women do lie more than men on an evolutionary level, just like men physically compete with each other more than women do on an evolutionary level. But nowadays we have the benefit of a civilization made of languages and history and cautionary tales, in which we're capable of coming to terms with these elements of human nature and curtailing them as we see fit. But it seems we currently live in an age where masculine competitiveness is being curtailed far too much, and feminine duplicity is barely being curtailed whatsoever. And that's why we keep hearing stories like this, where women can lie about men's violence and it is simply believed, because men simply are violent, aren't they? And women simply never lie. That's the thing
that you have to accept if you buy into these narratives, is that there's something about the core nature of a man that makes these terrible beliefs about men believable. And it doesn't really matter what, the political beliefs are of the people. Like, they're just more likely to accept that men are capable of this, and that's it. And of course, that means that they're more likely to, at least, like, to some degree, give women the benefit of the doubt. So,
yeah, and it doesn't have to be this way, folks. Despite human nature, if we listen to the cautionary tales that we have, as various civilizations have written over the millennia, such as Adam and Eve, if we listen to the cautionary tales we've written over the last decade, such as Honey Badger Radio's the various attempts, we can move civilization to a point where we can celebrate the productive and prosperous aspects of our gendered nature as, dimorphic animals, while also overcoming the destructive and distortive aspects of our gendered nature as dimorphic animals. Or maybe not. Maybe when lies are baked into the system, it's eventually impossible to see through those lies, and it's only a matter of time before we get baked into a cinder by those lies. Who knows? I don't know. I don't. I just work here. Leave me alone.
I'll be honest. Part of the solution is honor, and it's a concept that is kind of hard for women, and women get upset about it. And feminists protest against honor culture as if honor culture only denotes things like killing someone because their honor has been besmirched, or they have besmirched the honor of a family. But honor is one of those things you learn over time when you try to teach people that achievement, a sense of achievement, works better in changing people's behavior than a sense of fear of consequences. Fear of consequences is important. You are careful to avoid getting hurt, but you'll strive for achievement. And honor is an achievement and a very valuable thing once you have it. When people respect you based on your achievement of honor, when people recognize that you have integrity and that you are trustworthy and that you can be not just trusted to be honest, but to deal fairly with other people and to treat other people with respect and altruism and so on. These things are very hard to achieve. And these things grant you access socially that I don't know how to explain it in verbal terms. These things grant you access socially that you can't get without them. You can't get people to trust you with things that they wouldn't trust other people with just because you say so, or just because you're rich, or just because you're pretty. You have to have that honor. People will know that you didn't do something, or that you did something that you say you did, even if there's not necessarily physical evidence of it. If you have a history of demonstrating that you are honorable, and that you don't lie to people, that you don't take advantage of people, that you don't exploit, that you don't sneak and things like that. And it's not your name. There's nothing in your life that you own physically that you could say, I have this possession and I value this possession because it's sentimental, or because I use it for things. There's nothing that you're going to use more than your good name. And it's something my dad emphasized when I was growing up that was of great importance to him. And he proved over and over again to my brother and me that it was more important than even his health to him. And he also proved over and over again to my brother and me why it was important, what that allowed him. Like, if he had ever been accused of something, nobody would have believed it, because everybody knew that was just not in his character. He wouldn't have done it, right? So women have gotten to the point where they've ceased to value that. They don't value their honor. And that's a widespread, like, I'm making an allegation across an entire gender. Women do not value honor, and they don't understand it. They don't fully understand what it is. They don't fully understand what it means in someone's life. And they don't fully understand how to respect it, or how to make use of it as a tool in their lives in engaging with other people. And if we were to bring that back, bring back the importance of reputation, bring back the importance of having respect for other people before you're expected to, before you even have the right to try to earn respect. Something else that women don't really understand, by the way, and I've written about that before. Women don't understand respect. They substitute veneration, the pedestal, when they talk about respect. That's not respect. But you can't understand respect if you don't understand honor. And you can't understand respect if you think your reputation shouldn't matter. And you can't understand respect if you think it's okay to attack someone else's reputation lightly, right? So bringing that back would make a huge difference. And of course, we have to treat everybody the same under the law. Nobody should be should face consequences for an allegation, or should be judged based on an allegation against them if there is no evidence presented in favor of that allegation. Right down to if your neighbor is accused of something by another neighbor, just in passing, in gossip, you shouldn't believe that automatically. Even if you're not talking about a courtroom setting, even if you're not talking about treating that person differently, somebody says, well, yeah, Bob next door, like, I think he and his wife, have an orgy club going. Like, it doesn't matter whether that's honorable or not. You shouldn't believe it, because you haven't been presented with evidence. You haven't, if you haven't witnessed evidence, and the neighbor that says that can't provide you with evidence, then they're just bullshitting, and you should just, dismiss that completely. Right? And that's how we have to treat all allegations. And if we did that, and we went back to a system of not giving women goodies based on their just being women, and we treated them like men, where you have to have your good reputation, you have to earn the respect of your community, you have to live with honor in order to be trusted and viewed as honest and altruistic and so on, then women would be more honest, and women would be less harmful when they were dishonest. because people wouldn't be vulnerable to those lies.
Something to bear in mind for all the Western oikophobic types who believe that the West is bad and the East is good. Well, guess what the East believes in? That would be honor. That seems to be a significant difference between the West and the East, in ethical terms and religious terms. The West is based on guilt-based religions, and the East is based on honor-based religions. And that doesn't mean one is good and the other is bad, but there are ideas to take on board in both. And indeed, most of the East, particularly the Far East, is based on honor. And maybe this is why there's 5 billion of them and only 2 billion of us.
Yeah, maybe.
Let's take the best of both worlds, folks. Let's focus more on honor and less on guilt. But let's focus more on capitalism and less on communism.
Okay, gotta move on. We got one more story to go, and this has gone a little over time, so this is gonna be a longer than normal sausage. But let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. I don't see any super chats or chows at this time. I am gonna double check. No. So yeah, just like I said, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed. And now I'm gonna move on to the final story. This one is it's goofy, so it probably won't take too long, but I gotta share this. So the University of California, Berkeley, of course it's California, of course it's Berkeley, of course it's the university, will be offering a course this coming spring which focuses on rapper Nicki Minaj. The title of the course is, quote, "The Galaxy of Hip-Hop Feminism," end quote. According to the course description, the course will, quote, "track the constellation of dynamic voices, theories, and productions of underground and mainstream Black feminine rappers who have influenced the origins of hip-hop and its ongoing evolution," end quote. It will also explore the, quote, "genealogy and nuance of key Black feminine rappers and theoreticians." I don't know if is that a word? Theoreticians in the field, practice, and culture of hip-hop feminisms across the Black diaspora, end quote. The course will be taught by Peace and Love B.L. Henson. I think that whole thing is a name. Peace and Love B.L. Henson. Henson's faculty page describes her as a Black feminist urban ethnographer,
Good Lord,
critical porn studies analyst, end quote. Critical porn studies analyst, whose research deals with, quote, Black queer femmes, state violence, pornography, and ethnography, end quote.
It almost requires no comment, doesn't it? I mean, for one thing, Lil Kim's not going to be happy with this, is she? Bitch, I'm a Black female rapper too. Are you going to leave me as a side module while you stupid hoe is your 101 course? I'm pretty sure that song's about me. Therefore, it's a sexist, racist song or something. I mean, good luck studying hip hop without inadvertently stumbling on some infighting. Yeah. Particularly if you're focusing on their girl boss rappers. I mean, in the old days, of NWA and Public Enemy and Tribe Called Quest and whatnot, it was very much about having a good time and occasionally coming together against a common antagonist, namely the Popo. There were very few female rappers in those days. But perhaps we're back on the nature of toxic femininity there. Male rappers rap about bitches because they like bitches, let's face it. Female rappers rap about bitches because they hate bitches. I mean, bitches do be crazy, don't get me wrong. They do be hoes and tricks, obviously, but men say such things with tongue firmly in cheek. They'll say such things while still being hopelessly devoted to such hoes and tricks. But when a bitch got a bee in her bonnet about another bitch, ain't no love lost. So you're not going to find much in the way of solidarity in the works of female raptresses, shall we perhaps call them. Especially not Nicki Minaj. I mean, for fuck's sake. The only worthwhile worldly point she's ever made is how she's reluctant to join the eugenics program, and that was only because some bullshit about her cousin's balls. Is that going to come up on your course? Are all things forgiven on that front? Or is that not the kind of solidarity you're looking for? I didn't think so. I can't believe I've managed to talk about Nicki Minaj for this long. Somebody shoot me.
It's funny. There's opportunity if you were wanting to create an actual study of musical culture and Black culture and the intersection therein. I mean, there's plenty of room to go through rap lyrics and R&B lyrics and all kinds of music and glean ways of thinking and ways of expressing and differences in, you know, how do you paint a picture of a rough neighborhood versus, you know, like say the type of music that when you get done listening you're listening to it, you're picturing, you know, something Thomas Kincaid would paint, right? And there's a story from when I was a kid. I think a lot of us probably had to read this in school. It was called Geraldine Moore, the Poet. That the basic premise of the story is they're in a English lit class and the kids have been assigned to write a poem, and Geraldine Moore lives in a shit neighborhood. Like she has, her experiences are bad, and she writes about that. And she doesn't write it as a poem. She writes it as a note to her teacher to excuse herself from writing a poem. And it's a very bleak description of her neighborhood. And it breaks your heart. Like when I still read, if I've read that story recently, and it still makes me cry. And the teacher, it rips her heart out when she reads it. So she put it up on the board as a poem. And the point of the story is that expression is about discussing everything. It's about bringing out every bit of human existence in a turn of phrase or a means of getting other people to see it from your eyes instead of from their eyes. But there hits a point where your filter becomes an obstacle to that. So, like, I'm not going to claim that You a Stupid Hoe is a great song, that everybody should be like, oh, this is a masterpiece of, you know, poetry and artwork. But it is a form of expression that does help you see who Nicki Minaj was talking about through the eyes of Nicki Minaj, how she was feeling in the moment, what she was thinking in the moment, and so on. It's petty, right? It's petty as fuck, and she was feeling petty as fuck. And there's nothing wrong with recognizing that and studying it. What's wrong with this is the galaxy of hip-hop feminisms, right? Yeah. Immediately, we're putting on a lens. We're not going to actually look at Nicki Minaj. We're not going to actually look at the person Nicki Minaj, what she's thinking, what she's feeling, what inspired her to write this song, what's going on that this took off so well with so many people, why she decided to dance that way to that song, you know, what her look is all about. Nope, it's about her gender.
Yeah.
Like, well, I'm sorry, but that's bullshit.
It's specifically about feminism and her relationship
and it's about,
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is feminism? Remember, the bottom of feminism, the basis, the scaffolding that holds up the entire religion is patriarchy theory. So that song is supposed to be Nicki Minaj's expression of petty anger and opposition, basically, fighting towards another woman, right? What does patriarchy theory, what does fucking patriarchy theory have to do with a fight between two women? What does patriarchy theory mean? It's about men being in charge, right? Patriarchy theory boils down to the claim that everything bad in the world stems from men being in charge. But this is woman-on-woman pettiness, woman-on-woman anger over woman-on-woman competition, has absolutely fuck all to do with men. Men aren't even in that picture. What the fuck are they looking at it through feminisms for?
Yeah.
Right? And I'm sure that Minaj was probably flattered to have a class that features her and everything.
She did.
And I know she's.
Well, I was just gonna add.
She said she wanted to show up. I know.
Yeah, she wanted to stop by. The person who came up with the class,
right?
Yeah. So.
And I would be thoroughly insulted if somebody made a class about me through feminism's filter.
Yeah,
I would be like, so you're going to boil me down, everything about me, and everything about my work, and everything about to how it relates to men being the cause of all of the world's problems? Like, fuck you. I'm an individual.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that she probably won't see that. She's probably a feminist.
Yeah.
But she should. So this is really an insult to her. And it's really an insult to the women of this particular genre that that's how they're going to be looked at. They're not going to be looked at as poets. They're not going to be looked at as artists. They're not going to be looked at as expressors of their culture. They're going to be looked at as victims of men being the cause of all the problems in the world. Something that isn't even real. It's just sad.
Yeah. Well, that's the unfortunate truth about all of this. I mean, the fact that this class exists is just, it's sad. Like the people going to college right now, if this is the kind of shit that you're learning, it's not going to be very useful. So, you're spending a lot of money on this. I don't want to hear about student loan debt and student loan forgiveness. If you're going to the Nicki Minaj class, I don't want to hear it. So, but
yeah, I wonder how much Berkeley is per quarter hour.
Oh my God, I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. So anyway, guys, let us know what you guys think about this. This is just kind of, it's just
our semester hour.
I want to say it's so dumb but the fact is it's real. So just let us know what you guys think about this in the comments. Paul Grofton gives us $5 and says, Withmen are trusted to handle money, but they are 75% of the embezzlers. All right. Thank you, Paul Grofton, for that. We're going to wrap up the show here, I think, and head into the patron show, where we're going to look at either this Mary Sue article, Our Bad Boyfriends in Horror Becoming Too Much of a Cliche, or this Mel Magazine article, Instagram GigaChad filters should put alpha male theory to rest. It's going to be one of those. And then I'll just do the other one later in the week. So if you guys...
they're spending like $8,000 or $9,000 a year for their classes, and that's for just for being there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I know. It's crazy. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe these are really rich kids whose parents are going to take care of everything. That might be why Nicki Minaj was willing to come on, because I think that if this was like kind of a lower end college, she probably wouldn't go.
Yeah. That's just for part-time students, by the way. If they go full-time, you're looking at adding another digit and going up into the like $20,000 range, depending on what coursework they're taking.
Yeah, well, that sounds like college.
Like, geez, to take a course on viewing Nicki Minaj as a victim of patriarchy.
Yeah, to see how Nicki Minaj is actually a victim of patriarchy. All right. So if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about all of the stories that we discussed on the show. And please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of HBR News. And we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.